Are you an independent musician feeling overwhelmed by the endless act of juggling creativity, business, and self-care? You're not alone. That's why I created the Artist Mind Map. The Artist Mind Map is a free blueprint designed to help you get clear on the route you need to take to attain your career goals in alignment to your artistic values. This is not just another random PDF page for the forgotten corners of your hard disk. It's a timeless roadmap you can use for decades to come. Think of it as a go-to overview to consult. When you grab your free mind map, you get exclusive access to a masterclass that will take your career to the next level. I use the same methodologies and systems for my high-end paying clients and students. So why am I giving it to you for free? Simple. I want to build a community of artists who can count on each other for safe spaces. Music saved my life. I believe that you have all that it takes to be the artist you were meant to be, if you're willing to put in the work. And more importantly, understanding what that work is. And the Artist Mind Map was designed to help you do exactly that. So if this resonates with you, go to artistmindmap.com and download this resource. artistmindmap.com. Okay, it's December. By the way, it's December. Jeez, folks, it's December. And if your inbox looks anything like mine, you've been bombarded with year-end specials, holiday bundles, one-time offers. But let's pause there for a second, okay? Because what we're really witnessing here isn't just marketing frenzy. It's a pattern, a cultural script. A cultural script driven by urgency, scarcity, emotional manipulation in some extreme cases, and dopamine economics. Stuff that even seasoned practitioners, artists, musicians fall for year after year. Just to be clear at this point, this is not some anti-capitalistic rant here, but I want to use this episode tonight to talk about awareness. And more specifically, what kind of quote-unquote solutions we musicians and artists are buying. And what we're actually solving with this or not solving with this. Let's discuss. Welcome to another session solo cast. These solo casts were designed to help independent artists and musicians like you navigate the very complex labyrinth that is your artistic practice and career. They're based on empirical research and experiences of my own career as an independent musician and an educator and coach working with artists just like you. The primary aim behind these sessions is to offer accessibility to the kind of education many of us need to work with in order to forward ourselves in these very confusing times as empowered and independent artists in the truest sense of the word. C.I.A.R as a substitute for uncertainty. Some real science behind this, okay? Academic research has a name, by the way, for what many of us experience as musicians. It's called C.I.A.R accusation syndrome. Now, I will bet you 95% of you didn't even know that thing existed. Let me run that by you again. Academics have a freaking term for what musicians go through at this time of the year. C.I.A.R acquisition syndrome. A 2021 study published in Popular Music and Society by King and Pryor outlines how GAS, C.I.A.R acquisition syndrome, is not merely consumer behavior. It's emotionally driven identity work. There's that word again, identity. For those of you who've been following my work for a while, these past few months have seen the rise of this word identity in multiple forms. So this study represents, not the study, C.I.A.R, musical equipment, technical equipment, artistic equipment, creative professionals of all kinds, the kind of investments we make into C.I.A.R represents something to most of us. It represents potential, the possibility of doing better, sounding better, being seen as more legitimate, or even recapturing a moment of inspiration long gone. This is what this academic study I refer to talks about, apparently. And I can only reiterate for those of you into reading consider going and checking out the blog post where I include these references. Anyways, in other words, musicians or creative professionals generally buy equipment to solve what is essentially psychological discomfort. And for the longest time, I thought this was just some weird ass hunch I was having. But this is not speculation. It actually aligns with behavioral psychology research that shows purchasing behavior often compensates for perceived inadequacy or even anxiety, a form of self regulation or coping. That last statement is backed by research as well, by the way. We feel uncertain, we buy a new guitar. We feel stuck, we download another plugin or some new software. We feel inadequate, we quote unquote treat ourselves with, I don't know, concerts, conferences, networking opportunities, mixers. But here's the thing, the discomfort eventually always returns because these little treats didn't solve anything. And over time, this becomes a loop, a behavioral loop. And just to be clear, I'll reiterate, as I always do when I discuss these struggles that we go through as creative professionals, this is not something I'm pointing towards as a moral failure. Please don't feel should upon, or please accept my apologies if you do feel should upon. That is not the intent of what I'm trying to get at here. This is not a moral failure. It's a nervous system pattern, a very human one, but one that left unchecked can cost thousands of bucks, euros, dollars, without moving us artists any closer to actual alignment, without moving the needle, without actually getting us to grow the way we want to. Bear with. I'll take a second to explain a little more. Let's talk about behavioral compensation, what that even is. Behavioral compensation is like this subtle loop that feels productive. It's technically a psychological phenomenon, psychological terminology again here, where we basically attempt to reduce internal tension like fear, self-doubt, inadequacy, not being good enough, but taking action in another area that feels constructive, but doesn't directly address the root discomfort. Usually, it'll be unconscious, and it can manifest in highly intelligent creative people in incredibly unassuming ways. In the artist's case, buying gear is a classic example. You're unsure of your artistic direction, but instead of pausing to reflect or seek structured support, you solve it by upgrading your studio instead. So the act of buying creates a dopamine release, a sense of control, of motion, even though nothing internally has actually changed. You feel like you've moved forward, but the underlying disorientation actually remains. Just to be clear, I'm not saying gear isn't valuable. Yeah, needless to say, of course it is. You want to create the best art you want to and want to use the best tools you can at your disposal. The problem that arises here is somewhere else. It arises when gear is used to soothe existential discomfort. It's basically an addiction. What we actually need in that moment is not another piece of gear. It's not another synth. It's not another plugin. It's not another new instrument or software or even a bunch of new brushes. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here. I'm grasping at brushes here. What really is needed is a container for reflection. What we need is support in confronting the ambiguity, in finding language for our deeper questions, and in building systems that hold us when our art feels fragile, when our artistic practice feels fragile, when our career feels uncertain. In short, what we need is a process, not another random product. In short, what we need is, yes, you guessed it, coaching, mentoring. What artists actually spend on versus what they say they can't afford. At this point, I'm using they because I am proud to say that this is a pattern I've actually changed. Bear with, and you will find out more about what I'm talking about. This is where I want to draw a real comparison because I hear it often. Well, so many of my collaborators in multiple capacities will say, I'd love to work with this coach, or I'd love to work with UTL, but I can't afford it. And sometimes it's true. Let's take a moment to acknowledge that. Some of us artists are going through some very tough times. So let's please take a minute to make sure we have the adequate quantities of compassion to show for these folks. All right? Can we do that, please? Thank you. That being said, though, more often than not, it is not about the actual funds they have. It's about mental categories. Here's the thing. Musicians will spend $1,200 on a Moog synth. No shit at Moog. Love you folks, though I don't actually own one. They won't think twice before spending some $3,000 on a custom guitar setup. They won't mind spending $100 on some plugin bundles per month for a subscription or some software. They won't mind spending $2,000 on acoustic treatment for a room that probably wasn't even built to be a studio. They won't mind spending $400 on one single mic. Heck, some of these folks, some of you folks, you won't even mind spending $25 a month on some sample packs which you don't even use. But $300 for a legitimate, peer-reviewed, researched artist course? Some of you, you'll say, no, that's too expensive. $97 for qualified group coaching? No, not now. $25 for aligned community and mentorship with access to all courses. That's something I'm working on. Even that, some people, I'll see you nodding your heads and going like, I'm not sure it's worth it. Just to be clear, folks, this is not about shaming. This is about me shining a light on how some of us artists have been conditioned to categorize value, something most of us are pretty shit at understanding. Musicians, artists, we have no freaking clue what value is. And gear equals studio budget, equals permissible, pleasurable. Coaching, mentoring, on the other hand, equals self-development and feels like, I don't know, therapy or a luxury or extra or weird stuff weirdos do, which is the biggest irony. Watching artists and musicians call others weirdos is the biggest irony I've witnessed in my life. But let's not even go there. Are you with me so far? You folks tracking? Okay. I'm going to go ahead now with a side-by-side coaching versus gear comparison table. Okay, bear with. Here's a little comparison table I came up with online. Let's see now. My artist course, C.I.A.R, Complete Independent Artist Roadmap. Lifetime access you get for $300. This is like freaking researched, peer-reviewed stuff which some of the leaders in the industry have endorsed, okay? Every single person that's gone through this course has come up with major changes in their life. Now, these changes, they can vary. And needless to say, a course never comes with guarantees. It really is so dependent on what you do with it. But this thing is as legit as it gets. Heck, I use it. I study my own material. Earlier this year, I was in Osaka. I was on tour. I had some serious loopholes I was dealing with. I freaking studied my own course and killed it. That's what this course is about. I say that without any qualms because this course isn't something I wrote on my own. This was built with research, done with legit musicians, artists from like all continents. This is 25 years of work I've put in. Anyway, long story short, artist costs $300, one-time payment, lifetime access. What do most artists say? Too expensive. The same folks will not hesitate to spend $300 on Ableton Live suit or even an upgrade. They won't hesitate to pay $400 for some boutique delay pedal. That's not even an essential thing, like a boutique delay pedal, which makes your delays ping pong in a way some other pedal doesn't do. Hey, I love delays. But think about that. One is something that's giving you a return on investment for literally at least a decade or more to come. The other gives you freaking ping pong delays. And yet still, some of us seem to find that education course, that product, too expensive. Let's talk about my group coaching offer. That's like $97 a month. You get like live one-on-one coaching, group coaching in the mastermind from me. 99 or 97, the price varies depending on which time of the year it is and so on. But it's just like literally $100 a month for 4 intensive coaching sessions a month, weekly coaching sessions where you show up, you have the ability to work with people in your industry and get qualified counseling from someone like me who brings 30 years of experience from the industry. That apparently is too expensive for some folks. Folks who won't think twice for getting some plugin subscription for plugins they don't even freaking use. And I promise you, none of their music sounds better because of these plugins. 120 rehearsal room rental. Okay, with spaces, I know it's a little more complex, but so many of these people think of that rehearsal space as essential, which it is, but don't see how equally essential their education is, which, by the way, doesn't end at college. I'm going to get to that later on. My monthly membership, come on, that's like $25. I've had people who say $25 is too much for them to spend. $25, that's like 5 coffees. In some places, depending on which part of the world you live in, that's like 1 snack. It's a freaking t-shirt. Even that is too much for people to spend. People spend more on strings, cables, software presets a month. But a monthly membership to have access to courses which actually forward your career is too expensive for people. Now let's talk about one-on-one mentoring. Okay, this is my high ticket offering. This starts from $400 for like deep dive sessions where I take accountability and responsibility for the student and or client I work with. One-on-one, this is intensive. It starts at $400 and goes up to 10,000 euros. Yes, you heard me right. Needless to say, I don't have people signing up for my $10,000 mentorship or services or mentoring every day. That's a whole different program, but it does exist. And believe me or not, there are musicians out there for whom that's actually not a lot of money. That's a whole different topic altogether. But yes, it ranges from $400 to $10,000. Now, listen to this. When someone hears about paying someone $10,000 for mentoring or coaching, they go like, what? Holy crap, like, is this guy out of his mind? The same person won't think twice to invest a bunch of money, like, I don't know, $450 on a microphone, $3,500 on a guitar rig, $10,000 on a studio builder. They won't think twice. The thing is, all of these things, these equipment, the gear you buy, that's start capital. But which of these, take a guess, which of these are actually going to forward your career? Who is going to hire you because of a microphone you own, or a room you work in, or a studio space you're in? Think about that one. Who? And who are you if that is the reason people are hiring you? We're doing the same thing over and over again, and this is where the loop gets painful, my friends. Every year you invest in new gear, new software. Every year you're still unsure about how to get the gigs you want, though. How to protect your time. How to build healthy collaborations. How to share your music without burning out. How to not be dependent on some shit show like Spotify for your career. And that's not laziness, that's not talent, that's not because you're stupid. It's just strategic misalignment and lack of information. You've been trained to solve emotional and identity questions with gear and random information online, when what you actually need is integration, reflection, and qualified support from people who actually know what they're talking about. There. Got a little carried away there. Coaching. So what does coaching actually do? What does it fix? Well, to start off with, coaching doesn't really fix. I'm not really a huge fan of that word, but here's what you can't EQ or compression your way out of. Yeah, you can't EQ or compression or gear porn your way out of people pleasing that gets you stuck in crappy gigs. You can't use your new guitar to prevent chronic burnout from overscheduling yourself. You can't use your new DAW for disconnected projects that sound great but feel empty. You can't use your new studio speakers for visibility anxiety that sabotages your music and your work long term. And you certainly cannot use all the gear collected for a lack of direction that causes constant anxiety, constant pivoting, and constant confusion and leads you to nowhere. This is when most people say, but I'm investing in music lessons. I'm hiring teachers. And if you are, good on you. High five, my friend. Truly, that's important. And truth be told, if you haven't got your craft together, you shouldn't even be listening to this. Go do that first. I'm assuming you're already working on that. Yeah. Your art deserves it. Get your art together first. That's a non-negotiable. That being said, music lessons is not the same as what is essentially career coaching. Music lessons are not self-development. Not directly, anyway. And it's definitely not artist development or creative professional development in the complete sense. Training on your instrument in your art inside your studio, that's like learning a different kind of vocabulary. Actually learning how to serve the art, but knowing how to communicate what you stand for, how to navigate relationships, structure your time, protect your energy, stay mentally and emotionally resilient, self-care, that's an entirely different subject. Unlike any serious subject, it deserves its own dedicated space. So, just like you wouldn't cram music theory, arrangement, production, performance, and I don't know, instrumental lessons into 1 hour with one piano or guitar teacher, you shouldn't expect your music lessons to cover the inner work. Mindset, structural thinking, business ethics. Yeah, folks, that's a thing. If you're a pro, you need to understand business ethics. You need to understand value. You need to know how to sustain your art, how to reach your audiences, how to even build an audience. Communication, communicate with your collaborators. These are not abstract concepts. These are legit skills that are non-negotiables for those of us who actually intend on building a sustainable career. And here's something no one likes to say out loud. All other professions have this. Athletes have performance psychologists, coaches. Executives now have leadership coaches. Even therapists have supervision. Teachers have professional development plans. So why the fuck, pardon my French, do musicians or artists in general assume that we're somehow immune to this? Why do you think you're different? That's a serious question. It's really not me shaming you. I want to know. I'm curious. If any of you are watching this on YouTube or find this somewhere, I don't know. Answer me. I'm seriously curious. Why do you think you're different in your profession? Why do you think you are immune to this brand of support? Do you believe your nervous system is less complex than that of a high-performance athlete? Do you think your career choices matter less than those of a CEO? Real questions, folks. What's going on here? Because if you care about your work and your longevity and your well-being, this is not extra. It's not just some random abstract thing. These are non-negotiables. They're not branding problems. They're actual identity problems. If you don't know who you are, your nervous system is going to crash. If you don't have the basics of self-leadership down, you won't sustain your career. It's as simple as that. Even a miracle, even getting found, even getting discovered, somewhere down the line, you will have not reached your highest potential. chances are you won't even come close. The best part though, or even the saddest part, these skills, these are teachable, coachable skills that you can learn. You actually don't need a lot of talent for this. That's the biggest irony of it all. So, this season, my friend, rethink what you're buying. I'm not here to ruin the joy of new gear. I love beautiful instruments. Just FYI, I dig gear. I love gear. Fun fact, I happen to be brand ambassador for two of the world's most respected instrument makers. You know what the irony is? The reason why they trust me to represent them? Because I'm all about the long haul. I represent a brand of artistry that's not about social media virality. It's about long-term sustainability, long-term commitment, long-term excellence. At the risk of sounding pompous, I don't know if my art is excellent, but at least I aim to commit to a process of excellence. That is why these incredible brands, shout out to Nord Keyboards and Zoom Deutschland, by the way. What a legacy, man. I'm so humbled to have the honor of representing these giant companies as an artist and a brand ambassador. No shame in making a plug there at all. I'm so proud to be ambassador for these folks. But anyway, the irony of it all is that they choose me to represent them because of this mindset, because they're not the kind of people who would sell crap either. They want their audiences to be quality people as well. And that's exactly what you should be doing. But in order to do that, you're going to have to build these skills. So, it's Christmas. Holidays. I don't know if you celebrate Christmas. Personally, I celebrate everything and nothing. But it's holidays anyway, and your inbox is going to fill up with shiny sales and bundles. And I want you to pause for a moment this time. Ask yourself, what's the pattern here? What have I bought over and over without real change? Where have I avoided the inner conversation by outsourcing it to something external like equipment? Because maybe the best gift to yourself isn't another device to plug in. Maybe it's a structure for finally learning to listen to the most important voice out there. Your own. That's what we do here at the Holistic Musician Academy. So if this is something that interests you, you know where to find me. There's always these links. Holisticmusicianacademy.com is literally one of the easiest URLs to land across, and I'd like to think all the offers we have there are easy to find. You know where to find me. And if any of this resonates, if you're ready to change patterns, if you think that your inner growth is something that is abstract and out of your control, I'm here to let you know that that is not true, and I can help you understand where you start to change that. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is literally the definition of insanity. That's Einstein's quote. I'm told he was an extraordinarily intelligent man, so I listen to him. I definitely know I do. The biggest changes, the biggest improvements I have found in my life, and I've been blessed with a lot in my life, in my career, and I continue to be blessed. And I will sign this off. These major changes, the good changes, have happened not when I kept doing the same thing over and over again, but when I reflected and changed that which needed change. Happy holidays, folks. I hope that helped. Hey folks, I hope you found that episode helpful. Here's a little request. If you did, consider sharing this episode with your folks. Think about the ways in which they might benefit the way you did. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have queries. My name's TL. I'm an independent musician and educator and the founder of the Holistic Musician Academy.